Look, I'm gonna be real with you about something that happened to me, and honestly, I still don't think I was wrong. I'm Cassidy, I'm 29, and this whole thing started when I found out I couldn't have kids. Not gonna get into all the details. But let's just say I made some choices before I met my husband Lenny that came back to bite me. The doctor told me straight up. No babies, ever, and you know what? That changed everything for me. Like, what's the point of all that intimacy stuff if you can't even make a family? I mean, that's literally what it's for, right? So I'm sitting there processing this news, and I realize I've been faking it for years anyway. Just going through the motions because that's what you're supposed to do in a marriage. But now, I had a real reason to stop pretending. Lenny was at work when I decided I was done with all of it. He does something with logistics, moving boxes around or whatever. Comes home tired every day. I figured this would actually be a relief for him. No more pressure to perform, no more expectations. I thought I was being mature about it, you know? Like, let's focus on the real stuff that matters in a relationship. When he got home that night, I told him straight up. We're not doing that anymore. I can't have kids, so there's no point. His face went completely blank, like he didn't understand what I was saying. He kept asking questions. What did the doctor say exactly? Could we get a second opinion? What about adoption? I shut that down real quick. I wasn't interested in playing house with someone else's kid. He tried to argue that intimacy wasn't just about making babies, that it was about connection and all that mushy stuff. But honestly, I was tired of pretending. I told him if he really loved me, this wouldn't be a problem. Real love isn't about physical stuff anyway. That's just shallow thinking. The look on his face was like I'd slapped him, but I stood my ground. I explained that this was my decision to make about my own body, and he needed to respect that. If he couldn't handle being in a mature relationship or we focused on emotional connection instead of physical stuff, then maybe he wasn't the man I thought he was. Between us? I kind of enjoyed watching him scramble to understand. Like, finally, he was getting a taste of how it felt when someone just changed the rules without warning. I've been accommodating his needs for years, and now it was time for him to accommodate mine. He kept trying to bring it up over the next few weeks, asking if we could talk to someone together, see a counselor, whatever, but I wasn't budging. I just made my choice, and that was that. Every time he brought it up, I'd get emotional and tell him he was pressuring me about something I'd already explained. Why couldn't he just accept my decision and move on? I started to see this as the ultimate test of our relationship. If he really loved me for me, and not just for what I could give him physically, then he'd be fine with this arrangement. We could be companions, best friends, partners in life. Isn't that what marriage is supposed to be about anyway? What really annoyed me was how he started getting all distant and cold. Like I'm dealing with this huge medical news and making this mature decision about our future. And he's pouting because he's not getting his way. It felt selfish, honestly. Here I was, trying to evolve our relationship into something deeper, and he was stuck thinking about shallow physical stuff. I figured he'd come around eventually. He just needed time to adjust to this new reality and realize that what we had was actually better now. But Lenny didn't come around. If anything, he got worse. For the next 2 years, 2 whole years, this man would not let it go. He'd bring it up constantly, always with some new angle or suggestion. First it was couples counseling, then individual therapy for me. Then he wanted me to see different doctors, get second opinions, try hormone treatments. The audacity, right? Like I hadn't already thought through my decision. Like I was some confused little girl who didn't know her own mind. It was insulting, honestly. Every conversation felt like he was trying to manipulate me into changing my position, and I wasn't having it. He'd start these discussions all gentle and understanding, thinking he was being smart about it. Honey, I've been thinking, and I already know where it was going. So I developed strategies to shut it down. Sometimes I'd just start crying and tell him. He was making me feel broken and defective. Other times I'd get angry and storm out, making him feel guilty for even bringing it up. My favorite was when I'd flip it back on him. So my medical condition isn't enough for you? You need me to be physically available, even though I can't give you children? What kind of man does that make you? That usually shut him up real quick. Between us, I started to enjoy the control I had. For once in our relationship, I was the one setting the boundaries. I was the one who got to say no and have it actually stick. Do you know how rare that is? For women? Usually we're expected to just go along with whatever, but this time I had medical backing for my decision. But then he started changing in ways that really ticked me off. He'd come home from work and barely talk to me. He'd make his own dinner, watch TV by himself, go to bed early. When I'd try to cuddle or be affectionate in other ways, he'd stiffen up and pull away. It was like he was punishing me for having boundaries. I confronted him about it multiple times. Why are you being so cold to me? I'm still your wife. I still love you, but he'd just shrug and say he was tired from work. Total BS. He was clearly trying to make me feel guilty for my medical situation, which was cruel if you ask me. The worst part was how he stopped trying to do nice things for me. No more surprise takeout from my favorite place. No more little gifts. No more planning weekend activities. It was like he decided if he couldn't get what he wanted, he wasn't going to put in effort anywhere else either. Talk about immature. I started wondering if I'd married the wrong person. Maybe he was just one of those guys who only cared about one thing, and when that was off the table, his true colors came out. It was disappointing, honestly. I thought he was better than that. His friends started acting weird around me too, like they knew something I didn't. When we'd hang out with other couples, I'd catch them giving Lenny these sympathetic looks, like he was some victim or something. It made me want to scream. I was the one dealing with a medical condition here, but somehow he was getting all the sympathy. I tried talking to my sister about it, and even she was like, Cass, maybe you should consider counseling together. It felt like everyone was ganging up on me, trying to pressure me into doing something I'd already decided against. Why couldn't anyone just support my choice and leave it alone? Everything came to a head when Lenny handed me this letter. He'd been working on it with some counselor he'd started seeing by himself, which, by the way, felt like a betrayal. Going to therapy to complain about me behind my back? Real mature. The letter was all carefully worded and diplomatic, probably because his therapist helped him write it. It basically said he loved me, but our marriage was falling apart, and could we please try counseling together? Or would I at least consider seeing a doctor about possible treatments for my condition? It ended with some garbage about how he wanted to fight for our relationship, but needed to know I was willing to fight too. Reading it made me see red. First of all, the audacity to put this all in writing like some kind of business proposal. Second, the manipulation of making it seem like I wasn't fighting for our relationship. I was protecting myself and setting healthy boundaries, but apparently that didn't count as fighting for anything. But what really got me was the underlying message that my decision wasn't good enough, that I needed to be fixed or changed to make him happy. After 2 years of him wearing me down with the same requests over and over, here he was again. Just in letter form this time. So I grabbed a red Sharpie from the kitchen drawer and wrote across this precious letter, "Go get it elsewhere, because you're not getting it from me." Then I threw it at him and walked out. I drove around for hours, just furious that it had come to this. Honestly, part of me was calling his bluff. Lenny wasn't the type to actually do something like that. He was too much of a rule follower, too concerned with being the good guy. I figured this would finally make him realize how serious I was about my decision, and he'd stop bringing it up. When I got home that night, he was sitting at the kitchen table with a letter in front of him. He looked up at me and said, "Okay," just like that. Okay, like he was agreeing to take out the trash or something. I asked him what he meant by okay. And he said, "You've made your position clear and you've given me permission to handle my needs elsewhere. So that's what I'm going to do." I laughed because it was so ridiculous. "You're not serious." But he just folded up the letter and put it in his wallet. "I'm completely serious. You've told me for 2 years that this is how you want our marriage to be. You just put it in writing, so now I know where we stand." The weird thing was, he wasn't angry or emotional about it. He was just matter of fact, like he'd been planning this conversation for months. It honestly creeped me out a little. This wasn't the Lenny I knew, the one who'd spent an hour apologizing for leaving dishes in the sink. I tried to backtrack a little, saying I was just frustrated and didn't mean it literally. But he held up the letter and said, "This seems pretty literal to me. You even underlined elsewhere." Had I underlined it, I couldn't remember. I was so angry when I wrote it. He told me he'd been thinking about this possibility for months, ever since his therapist helped him understand that some problems can't be solved if only one person is willing to work on them. Apparently, I made it clear I wasn't willing to work on this particular problem, so he was going to solve it his own way. I spent the next few days waiting for him to apologize or take it back. But he didn't. If anything, he seemed lighter, like some weight had been lifted off his shoulders. It was unsettling. 3 months later, I found out Lenny had actually done it. He was seeing someone else. I wasn't supposed to find out the way I did. I was picking up his work shirts from the dry cleaner when the woman behind the counter made some comment about how nice it was that he'd found someone who made him smile again. When I asked what she meant, she got all flustered and started backtracking. But the damage was done. I confronted him that night, and he didn't even try to deny it. Just asked if I wanted to know details or if I preferred to keep things general. The casual way he said it made me want to throw something at his head. "You're cheating on me," I said, because apparently I needed to spell it out for him. He went to his wallet and pulled out my letter, now all folded and worn like he'd been carrying it around for months. "You told me to get it elsewhere." "This is elsewhere. That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" "Because I asked you to clarify that night, and you said it seemed pretty literal to you too." I started crying, not even on purpose, just from pure frustration. "I meant you should stop bothering me about it, not actually go sleep with other people." He just stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "So you wanted me to be celibate for the rest of my life and never bring it up again?" When he put it like that, it sounded bad, but that wasn't the point. The point was that he was supposed to choose me over everything else. That's what marriage means. I demanded that he end it immediately and promised we could try counseling together. Finally, right? I was willing to compromise. But then he asked the most infuriating question. "What's the goal of counseling? To get you to change your mind about physical intimacy?" I told him counseling was about communication and working through problems, not about me changing my fundamental position on something medical. So counseling? To help us both accept a sexless marriage? If that's what it takes, yes. He was quiet for a long time, just looking at me. Then he said, "I don't think I can do that, Cass. I don't think I want to." The honesty was like a slap in the face. After everything we built together, after 3 years of marriage, this was more important to him than our actual relationship. It proved everything I'd suspected about his priorities. I told him he needed to choose me or her. End the affair and we'd figure out counseling. Or I was done. What would counseling accomplish if you're not willing to discuss the main issue in our marriage? The main issue is that you're cheating. The main issue is that you unilaterally decided to change our marriage and told me to get my needs met elsewhere when I couldn't accept it. We went. He wouldn't agree to end things with her, unless I could promise that counseling might actually lead to changes in our relationship. But I couldn't promise that because I'd already made my decision about physical intimacy, and it wasn't changing. The next few months were absolute hell. Lenny was basically living a double life, coming home to me but spending time with whoever this other woman was. He wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. He'd get texts and just answer them right in front of me. He'd shower and change clothes before coming home some nights. I tried everything to get him to stop. I'd cry and tell him how much he was hurting me. I'd get angry and threaten to leave. I'd try to be sweet and remind him of all the good times we'd had together. Nothing worked. The worst part was how calm he stayed through all of it, like he'd made peace with the situation and I was the one being dramatic. When I'd scream at him about how this was destroying our marriage, he'd just say our marriage was already destroyed. This is just me refusing to be miserable while we figure out what comes next. What comes next? I couldn't believe he was already thinking about ending things. I started trying to control when he came and went, asking where he was going, when he'd be back, who he was with. But he'd just say elsewhere and leave anyway. It was like my own words were being used as a weapon against me. Our friends started picking sides, and I was shocked by how many of them sided with him. Apparently, he'd been more open about our situation than I realized. People knew about my decision and about the letter I'd written. They saw him as the victim, which was completely backwards if you ask me. My sister actually told me I should let him go because I was torturing both of us. Torturing him? I was the one being cheated on. I was the one whose husband was running around with some other woman while I sat at home trying to hold our marriage together. But the absolute worst was when I found out who she was, some woman from his gym, apparently. Divorced, no kids, works in customer service or something equally basic. Everything IWSN single quotes T. Available uncomplicated, willing to give him whatever he wanted without any difficult conversations or medical issues. When I confronted him about her, he said something that still makes me angry. She doesn't make me feel broken for having normal needs. Normal needs, like what I was dealing with, wasn't real or valid. Like my medical condition was just an excuse I was making up to avoid giving him what he wanted. I started watching her social media, trying to figure out what was so special about her. She wasn't even prettier than me, just younger and clearly more desperate. The kind of woman who'd settle for being someone's side piece just to have a man around. But seeing them together in her posts, because apparently she had no shame about flaunting their relationship, made me realize Lenny was different with her. He looked relaxed, happy even. Like the weight of our marriage problems had just disappeared. That's when I knew I was losing him for real, and I had to do something drastic to get his attention back. I gave Lenny an ultimatum: choose me or choose her. But this halfway situation had to end. I was willing to try counseling if he'd just stop seeing this other woman and commit to working on our marriage. His response? What's the point of counseling if you've already decided physical intimacy is off the table forever? I tried to explain that counseling could help us find other ways to connect, other ways to be intimate that didn't involve what I couldn't give him anymore. But he just shook his head like I wasn't getting it. Cass, I don't want to learn how to be okay with being celibate for the rest of my life. I want to be with someone who actually wants me. That stung. I did want him, just not in that specific way. But apparently that wasn't enough anymore. He filed for divorce 3 weeks later. I couldn't believe it. After everything we'd been through, after all the years we built together, he was throwing it all away for some random woman he'd known for a few months. It proved everything I'd always suspected about men: they're only interested in one thing. And when you take that away, they have no loyalty at all. The divorce was nasty. He had documentation of everything. My letter, records of all his attempts to get me to try counseling, even notes from his individual therapy about how our marriage problems were affecting his mental health. He made it look like I was the unreasonable one, like I'd been withholding affection to punish him or something. My own family started questioning my side of the story when they found out about the letter. My mom actually asked me what I expected him to do if I wasn't willing to be a wife to him in all the ways that mattered. Even she was taking his side. I lost most of our mutual friends. They all acted like Lenny was some saint who tried everything to save our marriage, while I was the stubborn one who wouldn't compromise. Never mind that I was dealing with a medical condition. Never mind that I was the one who got cheated on. The final insult was when I found out through Facebook that he'd moved in with her. Not only moved in, but they looked genuinely happy together. She posted pictures of them doing normal couple stuff: grocery shopping, watching movies, going out to dinner. All the things Lenny and I used to do before everything fell apart. What really got me was seeing how relaxed and confident he looked in those pictures. Like he'd become a completely different person, someone I barely recognized. The man I'd been married to for 3 years was quiet and tired all the time. This version of him was laughing and social and seemed to actually enjoy life. I'm living alone in our old apartment now, and honestly, I'm done trying to make everyone understand my side. Lenny chose immediate physical gratification over building something deeper with me. Our friends chose to support the cheater over the wife who was dealing with a medical issue. My family chose to blame me instead of supporting me through a difficult time. Fine, I don't need any of them. I made a reasonable decision based on my medical reality, and I'm not apologizing for having boundaries. If Lenny was too shallow to appreciate what we could have had together, that's his loss. If this new woman makes him happy by giving him everything he wants without any challenges or depth, good for them. I hope they're very happy in their superficial little relationship. I'm sure it'll last forever since it's built on such solid ground as she gives me what I want when I want it. Real mature foundation for a life partnership. As for me, I'm focusing on myself now. I don't need someone who can't handle a real relationship with real challenges. I'm better off alone than with someone who'd throw away years of history the moment things got complicated. Everyone else can think whatever they want. I know what really happened, and I know I did nothing wrong.